Welcome to the We See You podcast. We are here with Chere.
Hi, everybody.
So Matt has started a thing where he wants to talk about what he likes about the person. So I'm springing this on you, and I am not good with all the touchy-feely feelings and whatnot. So I asked a mutual acquaintance. We'll leave them out of it. But I said, hey, you worked with Chere. What do you think? What should I talk to her about on the podcast? And he said, oh, what I love about Chere is her tenacity. And she would always have a smile on her face and always have a positive outlook, whether she was having a great day or in the thick of things. She knew that it was going to be better the next day and would always talk to the customers and just approach everything with a smile and just work through it and be happy doing it. And it came across that way. So
I think that comes from is resilience. That's the obvious answer for me. And when I was just talking to you yesterday on a side conversation. You have to lose to know how to win, right? And we know this for sure. And so you're looking at like loser class A right here. I'm not ashamed to say that, and I say that with pride because that's why I'm also a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have been through so many things that I always think of two things when I'm presented with a problem. I always think of the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. And it never fails that the worst case scenario is not nearly as bad as some of the things I've gone through.
Right.
And so then I'm like, okay, well, then I can just focus on the good part. Like if you shoot for the stars and you hit the moon, you're doing pretty good.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I approach everything. I just shoot for the stars. And if I make the moon, I still look stellar.
Right. Yeah, you still love it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of wanted to talk about that. So I'm realizing as we go through all the changes that we're seeing in the housing market and everybody's freaking out. And my first thought as an entrepreneur and not just a realtor is how can I add to enhance my business? How can I provide a better product or service? And you know what's so funny is that the things that was lacking in my business or the things that were lacking in my business when I was really busy with production because it was like a flurry, right? Was self-care and learning how it kind of all feeds into each other.
Okay.
Right? I noticed that I don't have the energy I used to. I'm stiffer than I used to be. I spend a lot of hours sitting down doing admin work. And in the last 2 weeks, I've just pushed myself to jog a little bit, to get out. And I was golfing one day, swimming the next. And what happens is I don't know if you felt this. So I'll let you pick that up. But my mind starts working in a different way. Like there's new juices flowing and new ideas that come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've started working out recently with Matt 10 years ago. I was working out, then life happens and I let that get in the way. But I've decided since I'm 35 now that I should probably start paying attention to all of that stuff. It makes you feel better. You have more self-confidence and you get enough of a distraction or you're trying to think of things other than the pain you're putting your body through to generate those creative juices or get those juices flowing and just let your mind run while it's distracting itself. And yeah, I think a lot of our good ideas come from that. And you've got nothing to distract you from those thoughts while you're working out because you're not at home. You're out walking around the block or running around the block. You can't go, oh, let me turn on the TV and see what's there. So I think that helps quite a bit. So, let's introduce.
And when you go through the market, like I was licensed long enough ago, without telling my age, that I saw the crash of '08.
Okay.
And I just had a series of like not positive professional relationships that I've been presented with in the Shark Tank of this business at that time. And here we go with, now we're coming back and truth in lending's coming into play. And I got my bearings and again around 2010, jumped back in. And it was just kind of stagnant. And I've learned to navigate through the good parts and the bad parts of this market. Mm-hmm. So right now we see like everybody's spazzing. Oh my goodness, the rates went up 2 points and my buyers are falling out of contract. They can't, their debt to income ratio is messed up now because of interest rates, or my sellers are afraid that they're not going to have anywhere to go. And we've really, for me, it's just innovation. How can I make sure I'm going to solve your problem? Mm-hmm. And if I can look at it as, okay, well, the worst of this is not nearly as bad as anything I've ever dealt with, I can move on. I know I'm going to take initiative and stay on top of it. And it makes you feel good.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. We are problem solvers, mm-hmm. and we rely on each other. I came to you yesterday, like, hey, I need to send this message. Can you proofread it for me? Am I coming across too blunt? Because I'm self-aware. I know I'm super blunt sometimes. I want to make sure it's still professional, but not giving up my position, right? Because I'm negotiating for my seller. Mm-hmm. So standing firm, but I want to come across professional, because if it works, we have to work the deal with the other agent. So mm-hmm. I want to make sure that I'm communicating well and that they are receiving it well so that we can move forward, mm-hmm. but still acting in the best interest of my client. So I came to you, hey, if you received this message, or mm-hmm. if you were sending this message, how does this sound? Mm-hmm. And I think we do a great job of being each other's competition, but not seeing each other as competition, mm-hmm. right? Like I think that's the biggest part of our culture here, is that we mm-hmm. have to be able to trust each other, and we do. Mm-hmm. And if we don't trust someone, mm-hmm. Or if they feel that we don't trust them, that relationship doesn't stick around very long.
Well, and we see it all the time in our business. Everybody knows, we, without going into names or who's who, but we all know the offices that, they just stab each other in the back, or they're non-responsive, or everybody's new and the broker doesn't care, and because our culture kind of eliminates all of those being issues. We have a family culture.
We do.
We don't always like each other, but that's not what it is. It has to do with the fact that we support each other, and we say all the time with realtors, like we're not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody has a different, right? So like my clients might not like you, your clients might not like me, but that doesn't mean that you and I can't exchange ideas at some point and get to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. Accomplish something. So when I first came into this office, one of the first things I was told by 3 different people was, Matt creates a culture of success. And I didn't really, every real estate office you walk in is telling you you're going to be a success if you follow their little booklet that they put in your face and you give them $100 every month or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And that's not true.
Right.
And so when you hear that, you're like, yeah, whack, 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 right? Mm-hmm. It has been an experience for me in the last 2 years to stand shoulder to shoulder with you guys and find out that it really is true. And it's not just one person, the guy that's, the procuring the office right. and the team. No, it's all of us working together that mm-hmm. makes the hugest difference in the world.
Right. And we are extremely authentic, especially with each other. And if we have a bad day, or if a deal's falling apart or whatever, we don't complain about it, but we let others know that that's what's going on, because this can be a very lonely industry. If mm-hmm. you feel like you're not being successful, if your stuff is falling apart, why is everyone else doing really well and all of my stuff's falling apart? Well, it's 1, not just you. 2, you can still save this deal. It's not done. It may feel like the wheels are coming off, but here's how we can fix it. And then that goes back to we love being problem solvers.
I think all of us as realtors can relate to this, and this is even for the rookies out there. So we've all gone to a showing, whether it's the first house or the third house. We've shown somebody, and we get in the car, and we know it's going nowhere, or there was something that happened, something we saw in the house, and you want so bad to have that person that you trust to call or to say, hey, this happened, because your kids aren't going to know or understand the same as a coworker would. Your spouse, your significant other is not going to relate the same way unless they're in this business. And it's so nice to know that you don't have to sit there in silence and just steam on your way home. And like you said, it's a lonely business, and feel that isolation. We all have each other, and it's the coolest thing. It definitely encourages growth. It gives us an edge because, I'm not just getting Brandon, the realtor, and his knowledge. If I choose you to be my realtor, I would get Brandon and the team behind Brandon that's supporting Brandon. Great. And I think that's what gives us the edge.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say we're the best? I can't say that.
I mean, in my opinion, if you preface anything with "in my personal opinion," you can say whatever you want.
That's right. It's free country so far.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I've been revamping my business. I've been trying to like figure out, I had this goal, like massive production in the first quarter of this year. So I had this goal, like, okay, I need to get back into my advertising. I need to network. You always prepare for and aim for the clients you want.
Right.
I need to get on the golf course. I shouldn't let these shiny clubs that tell on me, by the way, sit out in my garage and not do anything. And so just basically putting yourself out there, doing things to make yourself feel physically better, and making yourself accessible to people, whether it's your colleagues or your clients or, I'm kind of excited to see what happens in the next few months.
Yeah. I think personally, I've seen a huge change in just a couple of days, and I don't know what's happening. But sellers are coming off the fence, and I don't know when we're going to put this one out, so it might be a couple weeks from now because we've got a little bit of a backlog. But
right.
I'm surprised at what's happening. Not so much as the market, but I feel like sellers have seen what they think is the peak of the market, and they think, like stocks, they think it's going down a little bit. And so you want to sell near the top. If you think the peak is already hit, you still want to sell, get the most out of it. I don't know that we've seen the top already, but we are seeing more inventory hit the market.
That's true.
Which is good because we've had such a deficit of homes and so many buyers for the past couple of years. Well, and even
still, I think that I think that the market is still mismatched. So now we're getting more inventory. But like you're saying, sellers have these expectations where, they're used to these awesome stories they've seen on their Facebook all spring about how 15 people are going to put in overpriced offers, all cash and no contingencies, and let's go. And then they just get to sit back and put their feet up, and they're finding out that there is a process, right? And sometimes a few days, and it's not magic. And that's kind of where we come in. And then on the other side of the market, you've got buyers that are like, oh, great, my interest rate went up, but, sellers are going to freak out. I'm going to have more leverage now. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot more homes sitting on the market, and I have my leverage, and I can make them pay my closing costs, or I can go $10,000 under, or whatever it is.
Right.
We are definitely going to see a balance to that. Because I don't think what we are seeing is a balance. I think what we're seeing is, like you said, a mismatched market for one simple fact: the demand for housing is outrageous. And there's a few of us states that have that. Florida is one of them, so that's super, right? And that's why it's not a bubble.
No, I don't think it's a bubble at all. I don't want to say we're getting out of that seller's market. I think, in my personal opinion, it's becoming a little more neutral so that the sellers can't demand absolutely everything and get what they want, The buyers have a little more time to decide, get closer to what they want. But values are still appreciating. We've had a little bit of a lull, but we've started to see, and I mean, it was what, a 2-week lull, right?
Right.
But now we're seeing more people coming out. And so the buyers had a little bit of reservation. Like, oh, interest rates just went up. I don't know if I can afford what I was expecting. And so now we might be seeing a little bit of a correction, whatever. But our job is to set those expectations. One, for the seller, so that they know,
Absolutely.
well, if I listed it $475, I should be getting offers at $525, all cash, no inspection period, no appraisal, closing in 2 weeks. Probably not.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
So I can give you a real life example. I have a client that we did a CMA in, I think it was January.
Comparative market analysis.
Thank you. Yes. Jargon. My fault. So I did a value opinion for them, a whole report in January, based on, just as appraisers do, based on the recently sold similar properties in their community. Honestly, it has not changed one bit. I think they thought if they waited, that it would go great, because guess what happened? Several properties around them are for sale. The prices are a little lower. And so now that they're dealing with reality, right? Now, don't get me wrong. If you look, the closed price of the recently sold homes in that community are above their asking. Okay. So the pricing strategy has been better for them, whoever is whoever sold these homes.
Right.
But on the other side of it, they're still not up into this level that they thought they were.
Right.
And so I think that sellers kind of need to look at this now, like you said, and there's, like, when you play cards or anything else, like study long, study wrong, right? It's really that. If you're worried about the changing market, that's not a time to wait and watch. That's the time to take action.
Right.
There's no reward without risk. So, I mean, it's but you really have to know what you're doing. You have to be upfront with people.
So my very first listing was before this market took off. And I was a new agent, and the person knew that. They knew I was a new agent. Met them at an open house. It was a house that they had previously thought about buying, but somebody scooped it up from underneath them at the time. So they just decided to build in that community, and then they had built after that. So met them. We hit it off. He had an engineering brain. I have a math background. Both very analytical. Saw eye to eye on that. They were considering selling their house and building somewhere, buying something else, whatever the case may be. They wanted to list it at $75,000 above what myself and Matt, I have the team behind you, who had much more experience. I made the connection. So we presented as a team and said, hey, here's where it should be. They wanted to list it higher. Me being the novice, right? I was so excited to have a listing.
Just put it
I'm
out
like,
there.
Yes, I'll do whatever you want. I'll learn from that experience, right? So we don't fail, we learn. Right?
That's right.
So now I am much more forthcoming with a seller. Oh, I think we can list it at this. We can try it. I'm not willing to go that high on certain things, like especially with this crazy market the past few months. It's like the numbers say it should sell at this. And for those of you watching, I have a math background, master's in statistics, so I follow the numbers. But this market has been an anomaly. So it should sell for this. Lots of over asking offers. People are making up the differences between appraisal and whatever. So it was crazy. That wasn't the market we were in at the time, but I wanted a listing. So now if somebody's like, hey, I want to list it at this price, I'm like, here's what I think it'll appraise for. The offers we get, if they have an appraisal contingency built into the financing, here's what we can expect it to be. We might get offers above. We might need people to make up the difference in the gap. But just setting those expectations is huge. And like, if we don't get a bunch of people to look at it and basically pit them against each other to drive up that price, then you are settling for whatever it appraises for. You can't ask so much for it and then expect people to still fight over it. But if you price it correctly, that will happen.
Well, it's so funny because I had a similar situation happen with my last listing I closed. And I got to tell you what happened. So client calls me. It's a power of attorney situation for elderly parents, right? And she's like, she comes from New York, and so she's not familiar with this. Not that, you know, she's a realtor at all, but I'm saying like not privy to home pricing here, right? So I said, okay, you know, I'm thinking like, you know, max 450 is where I would put this house. I mean, you know, here's what we've got. Here's the square footage, the amenities, the house, and all this. And, okay, and she didn't sound confident. So, you know, you hang up the phone as you say. Doesn't matter how experienced you are. You're like, man, I really want to be able to do this. I really want to procure this client. I want to make sure I can get this. And so my mind was going. So I called her back and I said, you know what, we can list you at 460. That's, you know, that's where you were thinking. It's fine. And I said 450 or whatever it was. And so we ended up not multiple offers. We had a strong offer. It was at 470. We had an appraisal contingency in there that said, an appraisal gap waiver in there. So they were willing to go $10,000 above appraised value. Okay. Yep. We closed it in 21 days on a conventional.
Wow. Okay.
So you have both sides. I think that goes back to experience and confidence. A new agent or somebody that's maybe a little bit afraid of this market or unsure when you're out, like you said, out there by yourself. What happens is you don't control the situation, and people don't come to you as a professional for you to give the ball back to them.
Right.
People come to you as a professional because ultimately they want your skills.
Right.
And if you don't show your value, and by not telling them the truth, you're not showing your skill and you're not showing your value.
Right.
And they're not going to trust you.
Right.
So you can go ahead and, list way over and do whatever they tell you to do, but they're not the realtor.
Right.
So I've learned through experience, as I'm sure you have, you don't go and just let somebody run your show. This comes from my bartending years.
Yes, I wanted to ask about that.
You don't so I attended bar for a long time. Go in handcuffs because you can live off of it, but you don't get anywhere. And it's really hard when you physically and the schedule sucks and all these things. But the minute I would let anybody that sat in that bar stool control how much they drank, control the pace they drank at, control when they paid their bill, controlled how much of my time they took, I lowered my tips. Ultimately, even if they gave me more, I've lost 3 other clients.
Right.
I mean, there's all these other things to think about that being the professional, being behind the bar, so to say, like I still had to maintain control.
Right.
So when it comes to real estate, the more I learn like this is the same exact thing. I have to make sure that I run this show. I'm going to make you feel the most comfortable, and I'm going to put your interest in exactly what you wanted when you sat down in that bar stool. I'm going to make sure that all those things happen for you.
Right.
But I'm going to do it my way because I'm the professional here.
Right. And our goal is to make you feel like you are the only person sitting at the bar. You are the only client we are working with.
That's
not true, but we want you to feel that way. We want to respond to your calls, texts, emails promptly, right? Extremely quickly. We don't want to go, oh, sorry, I'm just swamped. I wasn't able to get back to you within 10 hours. That's not our style. We want to give you the best customer service, much like tending bar, right? If you make everybody feel like they're the only person that you are waiting on, the tips are better, they're happier, they're smiling, right?
Of course.
They're wanting to come back, they're referring their friends to go, hey, we had great drinks here.
And let me tell you the other part of that is you have more fun, you enjoy what you're doing more as
Yes.
the bartender. If you let people run the show, by the end of your shift, you're ready to throw the towel in, literally, and you don't ever want to see those people. You don't ever want to deal with the industry. You go home and it's all these negative things, and it's a spiral. So just the same with real estate, you have to maintain that control in order to increase the positive vibes and share, reciprocate that energy.
Right. And the happier you are with your job, the more you're going to attract people to want you to work for them.
Yeah, because they assume you know what you're doing. Oh,
Right.
if you're happy at it, you must be doing good. You must know what you're doing.
Right.
So it's definitely a segue.
And as you know, a few of us come from a teaching background, an education background, and it's the same thing. So we
I feel sorry for you guys. Go ahead.
Thank you. We need it. But yeah, you are trying to make sure that everybody gets what they need. You will have the dominant personalities that want to be the center of attention. And you have to stifle that. Like, you don't want to. They're figuring out their personalities. They're growing into adults. But you have to manage that. You have to make sure that the quiet ones still feel heard. You have to make sure the loud ones still feel controlled. Make sure everybody gets what they're supposed to learn. And everybody doesn't get the same amount of attention, but they all get the right amount of attention.
And the right type.
Right. Yeah. I've got clients that I could update once a week, once every 2 weeks, as information comes in, right? And they're good with that. I've got some people that want to know when nothing is happening. Like, they want a message that says, no news. Like, we've got nothing going on. It's fine. Like, no need to stress, but here's where we are. And we have to read those personalities and be, again, extremely upfront with that.
That makes you be top of mind, is what it is. Like,
Right.
Everybody knows you could dig in your brain, and everybody knows that aunt or that uncle that you never saw them any time of year, and then you guys get a Christmas card from them. And you're like, oh, that's nice. And that's the only time of the year you think of them, right? But if it's your aunt that lives next door, you know what color she likes, you know what car she drives, you know what shift she works. And so it's really about building and maintaining relationships also. So we have the professional part of it, right? But it is definitely what you're saying, that even though they're not okay, I'll just go back to bartending. I used to say about, if you're sitting at my bar stool, I'm your best friend for the next 20 minutes or 45 minutes or however long it is. And so it's not, we're not bosom buddies. We don't need to know everything about each other, but you're going to know that I'm intuitive to you as a person, that I am I don't like the word fiduciary, but it's there, right?
Right.
So I'm your fiduciary. And what does that mean? So I'm responsible to your individuality as well as this thing we're doing, this project. So.
And you have their best interest in mind sometimes if they don't.
That's true.
Right? Like, you can't overserve, because that wouldn't be in their best interest. You don't want anybody to get injured.
I know you had the I told you so's. Like, you don't say that, but.
Right. Yeah. Like, it happens when, I wanted to price it too high. Right? And then eventually they come down, and they might move on. They might go to another realtor. They might not be happy with our service because we did what they asked them to.
Right.
But then that, again, is another learning experience for us. So we're more upfront, more blunt with them. Like, hey, if you want to do that, please interview other realtors.
Right.
Like, I want to help you.
Like, for instance, so I mentioned in the beginning of this that, like, you come across not the greatest people sometimes on your way up, right? On your way working towards your goals. And I had this mean old private broker. I mean, I don't even think he's still at it anymore. I don't know where he is. Anyway, you still learn from everybody, right? And one of the things he told me was, it's a matter of numbers. And I'm thinking, what? He's like, if you sold rainbow vacuum cleaners and you knock on
Which are awesome.
And you knock on 10 doors a day, do you think you're going to sell a vacuum the first day? And I was like, no. And he goes, if you knocked on 20 doors in a day, do you think you're going to sell the vacuum the first day? And I said, no. And he said, if you knocked on 100 doors, do you think you're going to sell a vacuum, or 100 doors in a day, you think you're going to sell a vacuum? And I said, no, but the chances are better.
Right.
And he said, it's the same with all business. He was like, you may come across 100 opportunities, but it's being prepared, professional, consistent, all of these things, and you're going to find your people. And you're not, you have to stick to your guns to a certain extent, right? Like, there's a reason we have our credentials. So I'm kind of looking forward to the shift in the market, because it's not just about passion, but it's about the hard work and the time and the energy that I've put into my business. I respect this business.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that sometimes you see our colleagues, right, that don't necessarily have that element.
Right.
And I think that's another area where we are definitely set apart. So in a good place, looking for good things, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I think retention and referrals is much better business than quote unquote door knocking, right? So yes, we need new clients. However, I would rather, instead of trying to sell myself, because I don't like talking about myself, podcast excluded, right? I'm wanting you to look into the person I am and figure that out. And if I'm for you, great. If I'm not, that's okay too. Like we said earlier. And I think we've said it on almost every episode.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Like, it's become a thing. That and Matt's thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits affect your thoughts, and it's a circle. So that's for you, Matt.
I like the working out thing. Yeah. Sure.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So.
Oh, and I know what I was going to say to that too. I got a bouncer.
Oh, okay. So we would much rather retain clients than to go out and get new clients or get new clients via referrals, because our biggest supporters have been our past clients.
Absolutely.
Because of our customer service, if you want to say it that way. Everybody we've worked with, hopefully, understands that we have their best intentions. We have the best intentions and have the best in mind for them. So sometimes it's, hey, we need to list it here so that we can sell it quickly because you need to sell it quickly. Sometimes it's saying, I think offer A would be better than offer B because of this.
Right.
It might not look like the most money, but it might be the most guaranteed money. It might close faster. There are so many different aspects to this business, especially on a contract, that you need someone to navigate that for you. But we don't push.
No.
We educate and then let you make the decision.
Yeah, it's all, again, you're in the driver's seat, but we got the map, right? And you mentioned like retention of clients. So I've been fortunate enough to have a few leads come from the office. I have 2 clients in particular I can think of right off the top of my head that they started out as, I don't know you from Adam. Then we did 1 transaction. Then we did 2 transactions. I did a 3rd with one of them already. I'm working on a 3rd and a 4th for another one. And so ultimately one of them is going to end up being 5 transactions with me. And another one is going to be 4 at least. And those are the ones that are in the pipeline now that I'm working on with them, or they've already been closed. So kind of like I was joking about the best friend for 20 minutes, people recognize when you respect them as an individual and when you recognize their needs. And, I can say it's being maternal or having that experience in hospitality, my professional experience, whatever it is my focus. And like kind of what Matt was saying with that synergy, it's a pattern. Like, thoughts become habits become, how does it go?
Your thoughts become your actions become your habits, and then your habits affect your thoughts.
Yeah. So when and if you stay in that, and if you constantly focus on, okay, I want to be intuitive with my people and I want to bring my professionalism to them, then it's almost second nature to you. I respect I respect my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather tell you the truth and not make $1 million than I would to have made $1 million and then lose you forever and have you bash me everywhere and I can't ever make any more after that. Right. So, definitely retention is key. And not only that, but it's more fun because then you have memories with these people and you're like, oh wow, remember we did this, and oh, this kind of reminds me of this time, or hey, doesn't this house look like such and such a house, or there's this familiarity there.
Right. Mm-hmm. And when Matt and I were talking about this, not on the podcast, there are agents in the industry that are in it to make a quick buck.
Right.
So they will do whatever they can to get the listing or to get you to buy a certain house, just because they want that paycheck quickly. And so when he said that, I'm like, you can sell fast or you can sell forever, because I would rather spend a year and a half, 2 years with a particular client, finding the right house for them, educating them along the way, because interest rates change, market takes off ridiculously, whatever the case may be. But we develop that relationship. They trust me. They know I'm not pressuring them to buy a house or to sell the house. And so that trust is gained. And then I have no doubt that if that person goes to sell that house or buy a different house or whatever the scenario is, I'm going to be the first one they come to.
Well, yeah, nobody... I mean, I use this phrase a lot for different reasons, but kind of what I'm thinking is, some agents that are out there will just be like, thank you, please drive through. You know what I mean? Thank you, please pull up to the first window. Like,
right.
I would be so put out by that. I couldn't imagine doing that. I get in conversations. I'll hold open houses, right? We love these. They're great. They're a great exercise for what we do as professionals and for the industry. All the reasons. And you go and you sit at one, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into a great conversation with people that had nothing to do with the house we were looking at. And so then you've built a relationship, and here I'm getting ready to close on a new build for some clients that started out, it was only the husband, not the wife, older couple, came into an open house. And actually, I kind of thought they were shady. Like, I thought he was kind of shady because he was very quiet. He was watching me the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a woman in the industry. So I'm like, okay, watch this guy, He was a little old, unassuming man. I shouldn't say that. But anyway, so I was like, okay, I don't know about him, but he's watching me. It's kind of weird. I have been working with them for about a year. They decided on a new build. We actually had a contract that we asked for release on because sellers weren't willing to budge. It was that market.
Right.
And now we're vying, we're at the closing, we're at the end towards the closing. And so we're working with the builder, if that's what you call it, and ironing all the kinks out at the end. And we've developed a relationship. They are inviting me to dinner. They're telling me, okay, well, when we move in, you got to come by and see the house. We anytime, you don't have to let us know, just stop by. And it's that relationship now. But it's because I took time before the open house was over to have like a conversation with this man. You know what I mean? And find out, you don't ever want to assume the worst. So, again, just looking forward to positive things, building relationships, and that's really why I do this too. I couldn't imagine going and having to follow a format and being a robot and
doing the same thing every day.
Yeah, I can't. I have to. I have to practice real estate. It's fun.
That was the good part about teaching, or the draw to teaching for me, was I knew that it was going to be different every day. And problem solving. The pay sucked, but
at least he's honest.
It was okay. In my Calc 1 class.
Did you say Calc 1?
Calculus, yeah.
I know what you meant.
So, well, not everybody does. So
okay.
Filling them in. There were 20 of us in there.
I did advanced geometry. I did trig and then advanced geometry. And I can't tell you about either one of those, really.
Yeah.
It's all further, Scott.
18 people were going to be engineers, and myself and a friend knew we were going to be high school teachers. But we had the same thing. And so I thought about it. Like, I wanted to be an engineer, but then I thought, that would be so boring. I would have no interaction with many people, as far as I knew. If you're an engineer, let us know how that world works. But I thought, I can't do that. I need the interaction. I need to be able to do what I want every day. And you get some of that freedom in teaching.
I think that encourages our success because when you open up, I'll say it like this: there's a point in this business where your eyes are open to the fact that there's no ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not about the money part. It's literally about freedom of expression and growth and all these other things that are really great and positive just in life. And when you have your eyes open to that freedom, you can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and you want everybody to see it too. You're like, hey, look at this great thing that I think where there's no ceiling in life, and you can do all the great things that you want to do. And we have to. That's part of our brand, I think, as a brokerage, and definitely what I convey to all my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And this industry, so I come from tiny town, Southeast Missouri, where
Cue the cow mooing.
Yeah, if we're lucky. You could get into education.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Work at Walmart or the lead mine.
I was going to say a factory or a mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely
like,
Midwest.
There were very few career opportunities. I mean, now that I look back, there were things like selling insurance and
Right.
car dealerships and whatnot, but
Sure.
that wasn't the main occupation for most people. Then I moved down here because there were no teaching opportunities there. Mm-hmm. And there are so many different careers I had no idea existed. And so then things start to change, and there is a world out there that you are not aware of. I don't care which world you're in. If you're in small town USA, there's an entirely different world, very diverse.
If you live in
group.
Manhattan in a flat, there's a different world.
Yeah. It's probably not one you want to downgrade to. You know what I mean?
Not necessarily that.
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
you could go ziplining for a living.
right. Yeah. We didn't have a ton of money. But then there are people that do, and they are, some are extremely humble, some aren't. But they just live in a different world, and you don't realize that until you get out there and
like
meet more
real
people.
money, because I said that. So very similar. Cowtown in Ohio. I grew up along the Ohio River. When I first moved here, just the sheer volume of exotic, expensive cars that you see at a stoplight,
Right.
the ratio has increased like dramatically.
Yeah, it's not all Pontiac Sunflowers and
No,
Chevy
it's-
Cavaliers anymore.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Nope.
Or your Kia Sportage. But anyway, so here's the thing is that I called home one day and I was just talking to my grandma and I was a little homesick. And I was like, hey, I said, I know that we have like the mayor and a couple doctors in town that have this huge house, and we all know who the main lawyer is. And we all know who runs city council. And I said, and those people think they have money. I said, but they have no idea. Zero what real money is. And getting exposed to that, I think the funniest thing is still true, and it's what she said to me. She said, oh, they put their underwear on just like you do. And I kind of laughed. We just, it was a tee-hee moment, but it's so very true. They're real people, and the ones that are guarded are non-accessible for a reason.
Right.
And it's nothing to do with you as a professional or
Right.
and that's part of the reason that I mentioned golf, because I found out that that's a place to go where there's a certain demographic that you see, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that. And definitely all the great business deals, right, come from situations like that, come from leisurely activities where you get business people with different mind states that come together in a non-business setting, and then you're able to grow from that. So it really all feeds into each other, Brandon.
Right. And I think the main reason deals are done like that, especially on a golf course or tennis court or whatever the case may be, is you have pretty much their undivided attention, and they can get to know you. So you are, for lack of a better word, stuck with somebody for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. If you're both businessmen, you're going to talk business a little bit.
Right.
Just to appease the other person. Like, hey, so what do you do? How long have you been there?
Oh, even if it's just for bragging rights or just to talk crap and have fun, you know what I mean? And yeah, of course. Yeah. That's a place to toot your own horn, by the way.
No,
ahead.
no, it's not.
I see an experience behind that.
There are
Do
people,
tell.
right? Sure, you just picked up golf. No. Well, and I mean, that's my personality is to not do that. Somebody that we both know found out that I play golf, and that's great. We played golf together, and then that person told other mutual friends. They said, yeah, Brandon is surprisingly good at golf. I'm like, they didn't need to put the word surprisingly in there. Like, it went from a compliment to a dig. Like, why would you surprisingly good at golf? And it wasn't like, I expected him to be good, but he was extra good. I think it was I wasn't expecting him to be good at all.
Because you're not a braggart.
Right, yeah. There's no reason to, if you do brag, there will be someone to humble you.
Well, I'll say it like this. So not necessarily about the game, and I don't want to be misread. So let me say this. It's a place where you guys have a common thread that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Right.
And it's your time to kind of, I can squeeze in comments and let you know how much I know about my business and how much insight I have to your business without actually saying that.
Right.
And if it wasn't for that 4 or 5 hours out on the green, I wouldn't have had a chance to do that.
Right.
That conversation wouldn't have come up. I couldn't be standing at the tee making wisecracks with my little, oh, I'm going to throw this in there with my joke.
Right.
And then they'll pick it up because they're professional as well.
Right.
So that's kind of what I was referring to. Like, it gives you a chance to, it does give you a chance to strut.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
even if you
get
don't verbally do it.
Well, and you get to let your guard down. And hopefully they let their guard down. And you can have those conversations. And you can learn so much about a person's personality on the golf course because that is the most frustrating game. And it is you against yourself.
It's true.
So if you can't control your emotions, I'm going to see that. If you don't like someone else doing better than you, I'm going to see that.
And if you're a hot-headed person or you're a drunk, we're also going to see those things.
Yeah. Or if you're a cheater.
Oh, yes.
If you try to give yourself a little better position here and there.
I have to say that the pencil that we were given does have an eraser.
Yeah.
Oh.
It does. It's not a great eraser either. That's the thing. Like, you can still, everybody knows those types of pencils from
I'm from the day
grade school.
where it was such a feat to actually print out a paper contract and get it faxed to where it was going. So I'm telling you my age again, right? That sounds like a whiteout situation. It just wasn't quite the same.
Right.
And you didn't want to have to print it again.
You can see that there was something done to affect the outcome.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, you almost see into a person's soul. Like, they'll throw clubs, or they'll get snippy, or you can see their inner demons. They might shut down because they're just frustrated with themselves. And then you can decide to align your business with that person or not, depending on how they conduct themselves.
And they're judging you the same way, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, you just have to watch out. You don't get that feedback on a person from many other activities, in my experience. There might be something else, but it's very eye-opening, and that's why I love it and why I hate it. And all the golfers will understand that.
That's pretty cool.
Because you are playing against yourself, and if you have a certain standard for yourself and you don't reach that standard, you can be disappointed.
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
In all fairness, nothing to do with real estate. I've heard how good you are golfing.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of known. I'm surprised anybody would be surprised at that. Just saying.
That's fine.
You're welcome, sir. Not tooting his own horn again.
Yeah, thank you. But again, it's all relative, right? So
it is.
The people I typically play with or against might think I'm great, but I know that if I played against certain other people, I'm getting my butt kicked. Yeah. And it's not because the other person's trying to kick my butt. They're just at a different level. They're better. Or that is also the humbling thing about golf. You do not know who is having the best day of their life or the worst day of their life, except for how they're trying to react to it. And some people will act like it's always their worst round, but it's their normal. And then some people, you can't tell that it's the best round of their life until they're done. And you have to, like Matt says, you can't ride that roller coaster, which is funny that he says that because
he's
working on the roller coaster.
Yeah, as realtors have to fight the roller coaster. I thought about that pulling in today, just driving over here. And, as realtors, we don't have to sit in offices. We don't have, like, some offices do, but we don't have required times that we got to be here or so many hours a week or anything like that. We're independent contractors. We work for ourselves. But I pulled in today and I'm playing music and I'm kind of bopping around behind the steering wheel and I am that person. And I went to go make a right to turn in the street and I thought, you know what? What do I have going on right now versus what I had 3 months ago? And then I thought, I don't feel a lull. I don't feel like something's been taken away from the market or I'm going to have to do all these things, these extra steps. I feel very positive and I feel very excited and I look for more things to come. And that is so key. Like you cannot ride that roller coaster. If you did that, you'd have a bad day every day because there's hard. When I had that both sides on my Howie house a couple months ago, that's a nice deal for a realtor, right? I could have very easily let that make me feel bad or have bad experiences, and you just can't do that.
No.
It's tenacity, right?
It is. Yeah. You have to keep the level head. Like I said before, deals will fall apart. Some deals will fall in your lap and go super smoothly, which are rare, but it happens. And you have to keep your emotions in check. And you can tell the realtors that don't because they are on you trying to lie or just be aggressive.
Or just find out what you have going on, right? Because they're unhappy with what they do or don't have going on.
Yeah, or they're trying to make up for their lack of knowledge by being aggressive.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
They're trying to tell you what to do because they think that's what should be done. And then sorry if you've done this, I hate when people say, we've both been doing this long enough to blah, blah, blah. Like they're trying to use their years of experience or how long
Don't put me on your level.
Yeah. How long they've been
you don't know where I am.
Realtor. Because how many transactions you do and how long you've been doing it don't always.
There could be somebody that was licensed yesterday, but they've been working with their mom or their best friend's aunt or however they were, brought into the business, and they've been their transaction coordinator essentially, right, for 2 years now. They have way more experience than a realtor that came out of school, no connections, 2 years in, but that person is going to feel like they have an edge over the rookie, right? And it's not true.
I've been doing this for 2 years.
Has nothing to do with that.
Oh, great, but
yeah, proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, and how you treat other people is going to be a reflection of that.
Yeah, it was nice. We should do this again.
Anytime.
Thanks, Brandon.